I didn't expect the war to begin before the wedding cake was even cut. There I was, standing under that ridiculous canopy her mother insisted on, a monstrosity draped in imported ivory silk like we were royalty instead of two people about to get conned by love. My palms were sweating. Not because I was nervous to marry Madison. I was ready for her, or at least I thought I was. It was her mother, Linda, the one who had those snake eyes that scanned my life like a portfolio she couldn't wait to tear apart. Linda strutted up to me like she was walking the Met Gala, lips tight in that surgically enhanced grin, diamonds flashing like warning signs. She leaned in close enough for me to smell her overpriced lavender perfume and venom. Then she dropped the grenade. Your parents don't belong at this wedding. I've already invited my friends to take their seats. Boom. That's what she said. With a smile. No shame. Like my family was some kind of dirt she was politely sweeping under the imported Persian rug. I looked at her, stunned for half a breath, but only half. I smiled. Perfect. Neither do you. Her expression cracked like glass. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't a wedding. It was a battlefield. Madison was across the lawn, laughing with her bridesmaids, oblivious, or pretending to be. That was her specialty. Ignoring the fire while it spread through the floorboards. She'd been off for weeks. Cold. Distant. Secretive. The kind of silence that wasn't born from stress, but from lies brewing like poison tea. And this? This little stunt her mom pulled? This wasn't just manipulation. It was a warning shot. I walked away from Linda without another word. She stood there stunned, clutching her wine glass like it was the only thing keeping her from shattering completely. My best man, Eric, met me halfway to the house. What the hell was that? He asked, eyes wide. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because something else was boiling beneath the surface, and I had to see it through. The rehearsal dinner was the real start of it all. Eric had pulled me aside that night, his voice low, serious. Man, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think your girl's hiding something. I laughed at first, shook my head, thought he was joking, until he showed me the texts. Screenshots. Madison. Some guy named Tyler. Last night was insane. I can still feel your hands. You make me feel alive. I needed that. Can't wait till next time. We just have to be careful. He can't know. It was like being punched in the lungs. I stared at the screen, numb. My fiancée, the woman who just gave me a monogram pocket watch that morning with "Forever Yours" engraved, was sending this to another man. Another man. Days before our wedding. Who the hell is Tyler? I whispered. Eric shrugged. No idea. But I've seen him around her apartment building. I felt my world tilt. All the moments I brushed off, the late night errands, the showering as soon as she got home, the phone face down always, suddenly aligned into one undeniable truth. I was marrying a fraud. But I wasn't going to cause a scene. Not yet. Because now, I had a plan. I didn't sleep that night. While Madison lay beside me, wrapped in silk and secrets, I stared at the ceiling with rage in my veins and betrayal clawing at my gut. Her breathing was steady, soft, like she was proud of herself for fooling me. Like I didn't already know. I got up before dawn, poured myself a whiskey, sat on the back porch while the sun rose on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I was planning the most brutal truth bomb she'd ever see coming. No screaming, no begging, no public meltdown. Just exposure. Cold, calm, and surgical. I called Eric. Told him what I wanted him to do. He didn't even hesitate. She deserves it, he said. Both of them do. By the time the sun was high and the guests started pouring in, I had already handed the photographer a flash drive. What was on it would change everything. The vows hadn't even started yet. But the war had. The ceremony was about to begin, and Madison stood there glowing in her custom Vera Wang, surrounded by bridesmaids who looked like they'd walked straight out of an influencer's Pinterest board. She caught my eye and waved, that fake little wave she always gave when she wanted to distract me from asking questions. I gave her a thumbs up. She had no idea what was coming. Guests began to settle. My parents, confused about why their seats had been moved to the far back row, still smiled politely. Linda had made sure they were practically seated in the parking lot. But that was fine. That was all part of it now. The music swelled. The officiant cleared his throat. And just as he began the welcome, the screen flickered to life. That's right. The giant white tent had a screen for the slideshow. Supposed to be childhood photos of the bride and groom, family memories, sweet moments. It started as planned. Me as a toddler. Madison as a kid with braces. Our awkward prom photo. Then came the first image that didn't belong. A blurry shot of Madison, hair tied back, wrapped in a man's arms. Her dress was the same one she told me she'd worn for girls' brunch. Then a selfie, his hand on her thigh in the front seat of a car. Then the texts. All of them. One by one, they appeared, in bold white font against a black background. Last night was insane. I can still feel your hands. You make me feel alive. Gasps. Someone dropped their glass. A bridesmaid covered her mouth. Madison spun around, staring at the screen in horror. Her eyes shot to me. I didn't flinch. I stood with my hands calmly folded in front of me, staring at her like I'd never met her before in my life. She stormed up the aisle, veil whipping behind her, rage turning her face crimson. What the F***K is this, Jason? I didn't answer. I just stared. You did this? You humiliated me in front of everyone. I didn't move. I didn't blink. You psycho, she shrieked, turning to the crowd. He's obsessed. He's crazy. This isn't what it looks like. That was the moment Tyler appeared. That absolute idiot had the audacity to show up late, sweating, in a wrinkled shirt, thinking he could sneak into the ceremony unnoticed. Perfect timing. Every head turned toward him. Madison froze like a statue. I finally spoke. Oh good, you're here, I said. Now she doesn't have to sneak around anymore. Madison looked between the two of us, her face crumbling. It didn't mean anything. She screamed. It was just a fling. 3 months of messages. That's a long-ass fling. She slapped me. It didn't hurt. Honestly, I barely felt it. All the pain had already been drained out of me over the last 24 hours. Now I was just empty. The officiant stepped back awkwardly. Guests were half standing, unsure if this was part of some deranged theatrical stunt. Jason, Linda hissed, stomping toward me, you've ruined this entire wedding. Do you know how much money, how many hours? I didn't ruin anything. Madison did. I turned to the guests. You all came to witness a wedding. But what you're witnessing is the end of a lie. I turned back to Madison. I wanted forever. I would have given it to you. But you wanted options. And you chose him. So now you can have him. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Oh, and just so you know, the venue's been paid in full. The food's still coming. There's still an open bar. I suggest you all enjoy the party. The bride and I won't be staying. Then I walked. Straight down the aisle, past stunned faces, out into the sunlight where the smell of roses didn't make me sick anymore. Eric met me at the edge of the lawn. He clapped me on the back. Didn't think you'd really do it, he muttered. Neither did she. Behind me, I heard chaos erupt. Screaming. Shouting. Madison wailing something incoherent. Linda demanding to know who gave me the flash drive. But I didn't look back. I was already free. The hotel suite was quiet when I got there. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels deliberate, like the world itself is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. I didn't even sit down. Just dropped the tux jacket onto the floor, loosened my tie, and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked calm. Too calm. Like someone watching the end credits of a horror movie they didn't realize they were starring in. My phone vibrated. First call, Madison. Declined. Second call, Linda. Declined harder. Then came the messages. From her. Jason, please. You don't understand. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Tyler means nothing to me. Nothing. From him. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know she was still with you. She said you two were basically done. I didn't mean for any of this. I threw the phone on the bed. If it shattered, I wouldn't have blinked. All their excuses sounded the same. Weak. Rehearsed. Predictable. She lied to me with the kind of confidence only a seasoned traitor has. The way she looked me in the eye the day before and said, I can't wait to be your wife. The way she leaned her head on my shoulder like she wasn't already betraying me in someone else's bed. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She wasn't just a liar. She was dangerous. The kind of woman who could burn your whole life down and then blame you for buying the gasoline. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling while the images ran on loop in my mind. The texts, the photos, her eyes when the screen changed, the slap that felt like her final act of desperation. Morning came like a slap of light. I showered, dressed, packed everything, left the sweet key on the nightstand. By the time I stepped outside, I already knew where I was going. I didn't tell anyone, not even Eric. I drove to my parents' place 3 hours out, past the noise, past the headlines, past the mess. They didn't ask questions. Just hugged me. My dad poured me coffee. My mom cried quietly while pretending not to, and I finally let the tears come when no one was watching. Not because I missed her, but because I hated that part of me still did. The next few days were blurry. Friends texted, some angry at Madison, some shocked. A few had the nerve to ask if it was staged, like I'd humiliate myself for clout, like the pain was performance. Then came the final knife. Madison posted a statement, a perfectly filtered photo of her in a white robe, holding coffee, smiling peacefully. Caption, sometimes the truth is complicated. I've learned a lot about love and forgiveness this week. Growth isn't always easy, but it's necessary. Thousands of likes, dozens of comments. You're so strong, queen. Don't let the haters bring you down. Men can't handle a real woman. It felt like the whole world was giving her a standing ovation for stabbing me in the back. I stared at the post, heart pounding. That was when I knew this wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. She wanted sympathy. She wanted to twist the narrative into something digestible, something that painted her as the phoenix rising from the ashes of my pain. I didn't respond. Not publicly. But I kept everything. The texts, the photos, the timestamps, the receipts. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. She wanted war? She had no idea who she married. I reached out to a friend of mine, Mark Jacobs, an attorney with a sharp tongue and an even sharper memory. We went to college together. He was the kind of guy who never forgot a lie someone told him, even if it was 10 years ago in a crowded bar. I told him everything. Laid it all out. Every message, every photo, every disgraceful little detail. He didn't interrupt once. Just kept nodding, scribbling something on a yellow legal pad while sipping espresso like we were discussing a traffic ticket and not the implosion of my entire life. When I was finished, he looked up and said, "You ready to bury her?" That was all it took. Divorce papers were drawn up before she could even get her nails redone. I didn't ask for anything that wasn't mine, but I made damn sure she wasn't getting anything that wasn't hers. No spousal support. No joint accounts. I'd paid for 90% of the wedding, the apartment, the car, hell, even her gym membership where, ironically, she probably met Tyler. And now it was time to strip it all away, layer by layer, just like she stripped away every ounce of trust one ever gave her. She didn't take it well. When she was served, she called 13 times in a row. I finally picked up on the 14th. Her voice was shaking. "You can't be serious." "I'm not just serious," I said coldly. "I'm done." "You're not even going to talk to me first?" she snapped. "You're just throwing this away?" I laughed. I actually laughed. "You threw it away when you started playing house with that glorified background extra." "I'm just cleaning up the mess." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her pacing, her hair tied up, biting the inside of her cheek like she always did when she was losing control. "You won't get sympathy from anyone," she hissed. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. My friends. My family." "That's the thing, Madison," I said. "You were never trying to marry me. You were trying to replace me." She hung up. Linda tried next. That woman had the audacity to send me an email. Subject, a final appeal. It was 3 paragraphs of passive-aggressive manipulation. She claimed I had overreacted, that passion makes people do irrational things, and that true forgiveness is the sign of a man worth marrying. She ended with, "I'm sure if your parents weren't seated so far back, this all could have been avoided." I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Mark and told him, if she ever contacted me again, to file a restraining order. Then I blocked them both. The truth is, cutting them off felt like sawing off a dead limb. Painful, but necessary to live. I started over slowly. I moved back into my old condo, put Madison's things in a box and left it at her sister's place. Eric came by and helped repaint the walls. We stripped the framed photos, repurposed the furniture, and played Nirvana way too loud. I picked up old hobbies. Started running again. Volunteered on weekends. I wasn't trying to distract myself. I was rebuilding myself. Not the guy she tried to mold into a background character in her story, but me. The man I was before I ever met that black hole in a white dress. Then something happened. One night, around 2 a.m., I got a knock on my door. I knew who it was before I even checked the peephole. She was standing there in sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, mascara smudged, eyes red. The confident, calculating Madison was gone. This woman looked broken. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, didn't say a word. She bit her lip, trembling. "I messed up." "No," I said. "You calculated. You manipulated. You lied. That's not a mistake. That's character." "I didn't love him," she whispered. "It just made me feel powerful." And there it was. The raw, ugly truth. The one thing I knew but hadn't heard out loud until that moment. Power. She wanted control. She didn't want a husband, she wanted a mirror she could admire herself in. You should go, I said. She didn't beg. Just nodded, turned, and walked into the night like a ghost, realizing the haunting was over. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there for a long time. Then, for the first time in months, I exhaled. The days after that felt different. Lighter. Like I'd taken off a jacket soaked in gasoline and stepped out of a burning building without a single blister. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the next betrayal. I wasn't second-guessing text messages or reading silence like a code. I was just living. Eating dinner without checking my phone. Sleeping through the night. Waking up without that pit in my chest. She tried once more. Of course she did. A letter. Handwritten. 8 pages long. Sent by mail, probably to bypass the block. It was chaos on paper. Apologies, accusations, compliments, even a poem. She said she loved me, she missed me, she wanted to start again from zero. She blamed Tyler. She blamed stress. She blamed me. She wrote, "You were too stable." I think I needed drama. I didn't finish reading it. Tore it in half and tossed it in the trash. There wasn't a single sentence in those pages that could glue back what she'd shattered. A month later, she was posting pictures with Tyler again. This time in Tulum. Sunsets and smiles and quotes about healing. I muted her everywhere. Not because I cared, but because it was like watching someone scribble lipstick over a crime scene and call it art. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. I started seeing people again slowly. Carefully. Guard up, but not locked. I wasn't hunting for revenge or looking to replace her. I was just reminding myself that there were women who didn't see love as leverage. Women who spoke honestly and didn't smile while they stabbed. It wasn't easy. The betrayal lingered like a bruise under the skin. Sometimes I'd hear a phrase or a laugh or see a red dress in a crowd, and I'd feel my chest tighten. But it passed. Each time, it passed quicker. One night, I met someone. Emily. She wasn't flashy. No designer bags, no obsession with status, no fake laughs at bad jokes. Just real. Present. Honest. I didn't tell her everything at first. How could I? The wound was still fresh, and dragging her into the aftermath felt unfair. But she was patient. Gentle. And when I finally told her what happened, every messy, humiliating detail, she didn't flinch. She just said, "I'm glad you walked away." That takes guts. It hit me harder than I expected. Because no one had said that before. Not even me. Months passed. One morning, I got a wedding invite in the mail. Madison and Tyler. I actually laughed when I saw it. Not a bitter laugh. Just a real one. Because of course she'd spin the story, reframe herself as the phoenix who rose from the ashes of the man who just didn't understand her. The invite went straight into the shredder. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even curious. Because I'd already won. Not by humiliating her. Not by walking out. But by not going back. By choosing peace over chaos. By becoming a man who could look in the mirror and not see shame, only scars. Scars that told a story, yes. But also proved I'd healed. Looking back, I realized Madison and her mother were two faces of the same disease, control wrapped in charm. One tried to replace my family, the other tried to replace me. They failed. And if there's anything I'd tell the next man standing where I once stood, it's this. Don't beg for respect. Don't argue with a lie. And when you see the truth, no matter how ugly, walk. And never look back. Because sometimes, walking away is the revenge. A year passed. Funny how time doesn't just heal, it reveals. What I thought was the worst thing to ever happen to me turned out to be the greatest escape I never planned. I saw it all more clearly with each passing month. Not just Madison and what she did, but me, the version of myself I'd allowed to shrink so she could shine. I'd been bending, constantly bending, to make her feel bigger. Canceling dinners with my parents because she wasn't in the mood. Pretending her coldness was just stress. Ignoring that every time she smiled in public, it cost me something in private. I was giving pieces of myself away, quietly, daily, until I had nothing left but a ring and a future filled with lies. But now, I was whole again. Emily was still around. She didn't push. She didn't try to fix me. She just existed beside me, and somehow that was enough. We cooked together. Laughed about dumb things. Argued sometimes, sure, but it wasn't war. It wasn't layered with manipulation. When she was angry, she told me. When she was happy, she didn't weaponize it. I used to think love was about surviving storms. Turns out, it's about not creating them in the first place. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from Eric. You sitting down? Do I need to be? He laughed nervously. Guess who just filed a lawsuit against her new husband? My heart dropped. Wait, Tyler. Yup. He's suing her for fraud. Claims she had debts, used his name to lease a car, and tried to get power of attorney over his real estate investments. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was inevitable. The same chaos she once brewed in my life had found a new home. I hung up and stared at the ceiling for a while, letting the irony settle in. Madison hadn't changed. She'd just moved the battlefield. I should have felt vindicated. Maybe I did. But it wasn't satisfaction, it was sadness. Because I'd loved her once. Deeply. Stupidly. Enough to build a life on quicksand and pretend the cracks were just quirks. Now someone else was sinking, and the storm she carried was still alive. That's when it hit me. I didn't need to prove I was right. I was right. And I didn't need closure from her. The moment I walked out of that wedding, the moment I chose truth over illusion, that was the closure. Everything after that had just been noise. One night, I stood in front of the mirror again. No tuxedo this time. Just me. Clean. Quiet. Calm. And in the silence, I realized something. I was never afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being invisible inside a relationship, of loving someone who didn't know how to love me back. But now I knew better. I knew what love didn't look like. And sometimes, that's all you need to find what it does. It happened quietly. No grand finale. No final message. No last chance standoff. Just peace. One morning, I made coffee, looked out the window, and realized I hadn't thought about Madison in weeks. Not her face, not her voice, not the ache she once left behind. The pain that used to gnaw at my chest had faded into a scar I barely noticed. Not forgotten, just healed. Life had moved on. I moved on. I sold the condo and bought a small place with a garden, something I'd never had time for before. On weekends, I planted things with my bare hands, tiny green reminders that growth is slow, messy, and entirely worth it. Emily was still in my life. Still steady. Still kind. Not some fantasy or distraction, just a real person walking beside me at my pace. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing or being chased. We weren't building something to post online. We were just living. Some nights, I'd lie in bed, listening to the quiet hum of the world outside, and think about everything that happened. The betrayal. The humiliation. The explosion of a future I once clung to like a lifeline. And I wouldn't feel bitter. I'd feel grateful. Because Madison didn't destroy me. She revealed me. She showed me the parts I'd abandoned to please someone who never saw me as enough. She stripped away the illusions I was too afraid to question. And in doing so, she gave me back me. People always say heartbreak makes you stronger. That's only half true. Heartbreak gives you a choice, to become bitter or to become honest. I chose honest. And if someone out there is reading this, some guy staring at the pieces of his life after betrayal, wondering if he'll ever breathe normally again, let me say this. You will. But only if you stop waiting for an apology. Only if you stop trying to rewrite the past. Only if you stop asking, why wasn't I enough? And start asking, why did I stay when she wasn't? You weren't the fool. You were the believer. And next time, you'll believe in yourself. That's not the end of the story. That's where it finally begins.